me see. I don't know why my camera is so blurry. Okay. So it is 6:04 a.m. on what is this, May 24th? I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. I don't know. Anyway, I'm really tired right now. This will possibly be short. I had been driving, but I'm like really tired. So, unfortunately, my account is overdrafted. I guess fuel hit. So now I have to make a lot in order to make up and pay my bills and pay for the car for the day and keep working. But I'm exhausted at this moment, so I'm going to take a little bit of a nap. But while I was driving, it was kind of brought to my attention that there are some things I should talk about. I am going to use my medication. One of the things I'm going to talk about, though, it's going to be my former employment, both at Ace Reporters, which had been mentioned in a previous video, and a company that I worked at very briefly prior to that. But before I medicate and before I go any further, I would like to say something to a very specific individual whose name is Jennifer Roster. I had reached out to Jen in early 2020 during a point where something happened that I need an attorney to speak to about what was happening. And essentially, I was trying to explain to Jen what was going on, but due to what was going on, along with a few other things, and including the likely stroke that I had in 2019, as opposed to us having a conversation or speaking in person like this, everything was done via text, and she may have thought something else was going on and may have made some very bad decisions based off of not fully understanding the situation or not even knowing certain things. Like the fact that a specific individual who she told me, she started screaming at me for tagging, she might not be aware that my former employers may know this individual, and basically I had a whistleblower case against them at that point in time, and there was a lot going on that I couldn't control. Again, I need an attorney, but it needs to be understood. It was like information was being forcibly pulled from my head, and that I had now I have to go back and review. And this is one of the things that I need to discuss, is that I need to go back and review messages and explain, like, I was fully aware of what was going on, but I could not communicate both. Like, it was just spewing. And unfortunately, because of the fact that I am the family member of someone who is in cybersecurity, because of the fact that it's happened right before an election, and because of the fact that I had called my mom out on her racism, and the fact that my mom is heavily involved in Focus on the Family. Now, she is a Republican, as is her husband. I am not. I am a Democrat. There were a lot of things going on all at once, including, some fucking random person I met drunkenly at a concert that I deeply, deeply regret meeting, thinking that posts about someone I had fallen in love with were about him. Why in the fuck would you think that, Oliver? We hadn't seen each other in 2 years and you were getting married. It was not about you. I'm sorry. I'm also not into BDSM, and I need to be very adamant about that because I think there were some people confused. But I again, I apologize for any miscommunication there. I want to get back on track. I apologize. My anger is valid given the entirety of the situation, especially since I was essentially in a sense forced to divulge things that I had no plan on divulging. I kind of sort of was forced into, I can't talk about that without an attorney. No, like, I had been suffering with very severe battered women syndrome prior to fleeing my second marriage and living with my mom. My mom, I had, from the moment I moved in, I had been reaching out to people to try and ask for assistance on how to deal with the racism in their house, and I was dismissed, told to just live with it, ignore it. I couldn't anymore after 2 years. I had no choice but to do what I did and record them, because every weekend, every week, they would trash talk their congregation every single week. And it's fine if you have personal opinions on people, but you go to fucking church, their involvement in the church, it is not one where they are actually concerned about people from a religious perspective. It is entirely power and control. And that is the problem. And I understand that with religion, this is a touchy subject. I'm sorry. There are lives that are at stake, including children who don't necessarily understand that there are people who are in their midst who secretly hate them when they're at home, but when they're at church, they're all nice, and because it's what God wants. No, that's not. There cannot be two things. You cannot be divided. You need to be whole. Because it is when we split our decisions like that, you are two-faced. You are showing people one side of yourself, and then you're going home and you're no. I'm sorry. This is not where I had planned on taking my video this morning, but that's just where it went. So I do apologize. I need to take a deep breath. One of the problems that I seem to be facing personally is that a lot of people seem to just don't care about my existence because I fled 2 marriages with no alimony. My first marriage, I did not want to marry the man at all. My mom essentially told me that I was not going to school if I was unmarried, and his mom threw a fucking temper tantrum. Like, she threw such a fit that I was terrified that if we waited to get married, the stress that she was giving me, I've never had anxiety like that before in my life. No, I would not have married him had we'd not been forced like that. Had that pressure not been there, we would not have been married. He is the sole reason for my bankruptcy, my first bankruptcy. I am 99% certain I can prove it, especially if my mom she's a hoarder. And when I was living with her, she actually hid a lot of my stuff, including boxes with financial documents from the early 2000s, including pay stubs and bills that, along with the Nordstrom card that I had the majority of my debt on, that I would not have even had had I not known him. No, I'm pretty certain I can in fact prove that my first husband was the reason for my first bankruptcy. And I'm saying that because a lot of issues that I've dealt with seem to stem from the fact that I haven't had money since moving back from Toronto. But that's because the United States had been in a recession when I moved home. And then being in hair and makeup, it takes a while to build clientele. And by the time I finally built a clientele, I ended up moving and giving all that up. So it's not that I'm not a successful individual, which is one of the things that for whatever fucking reason, it seems like the lack of money that I had was something that my parents held, at least my mom held against me. And at one point, I know she felt like I was using her. I was not using you, Mom. I asked you to stop buying me things. No, I was not using you. I needed a divorce attorney. You bought yourself a house. I was not using you. Anyway. And I had suggested that you buy the house because your lease was running up, but also because New Jersey might be legalizing cannabis before the state of Pennsylvania, and it would be a good investment opportunity. And guess what? Nick Foles bought a house that was like 2 blocks away from you. Yes, it was a good investment. You're welcome for the investment advice. Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not normally like this. It's just, for 2 years, I have not had a single person to talk with This is not like needing a therapist. I was fine. I had a therapist. My husband took me off the insurance. Now it's a different story as far as finding a therapist. But no, my ex-husband took me off my insurance. No, like I was fine with a therapist. That was not what I needed. I needed friends. And the people that I reached out to just like, I don't fucking know. Um, Other people seem to think I'm a different person, and I'm very sorry, including one individual who I reflect her greatly. Um, I'm not talking about that. I was had been trying to cut her out of my life anyway. Um, I'm sorry for yelling. So one of the things I need to talk about, and yes, there actually at one particular point in time there was Instagram analytics that existed that proved certain people who were stalking me. It is almost, however, that perhaps something was going on to push me past statutes so certain things weren't saved. I sincerely hope not. In 2018, I had a 2-hour medical event that I've shown in other videos that I was not properly treated for, and it caused severe neurological and cognitive issues. Not severe neuro. It caused cognitive issues to the point where I couldn't work. I couldn't look at a TV screen. I couldn't drive for a while. I should have been in the hospital. I should not have been home. I had 3 surgical clips in my neck, and my head was flailing for like violently for 2 hours. After that, I was kind of sort of targeted by my landlord's brother. I had no initially. I had no intention of meeting him. We had been talking as I had been trying to relearn social skills, but I did not want to meet him. I had no plans on meeting him. And then I had this major medical issue, and again recognized I had some very serious cognitive issues to the point where I had to quit a job that I had been contracted to do doing data conversions, which I have the email exchange explaining the medical issues I was dealing with. And I had been seeing someone on and on, like, it wasn't serious. I had wanted it to be eventually if things were to progress to that point. We never talked about it, but we were seeing each other casually. Like I was not interested in dating anybody. That I had no interest in dating Shaquem. I did not want to have sex with him. I only talked with him about Gundam. That was it. And one of the people who I had been relying heavily on social skills and assistance and trying to relearn social skills, who, to be entirely honest, she was not the most supportive person. And I know that she was going through a lot herself, but she was not at all supportive of me. She actually was very unhealthy to have in my life because the things that she thought were good for me were not. She kept insisting she wanted me to date the landlord's brother, Shaquem. She wanted us to date. She didn't want me to date the other person. I had been picking up on some weird energies and may have been misinterpreting things because of how bad my PTSD was when I first met him. But no, like that, there is a possibility she was basing it solely off of looks and that she didn't want me to date someone attractive, which, as strange as that sounds, is honestly very much a possibility. And especially since the guy she wanted me to be with is exactly like pretty much many of my exes as far as what the relationship consisted of. My just sitting there quietly and watching him do things. And that he really was not concerned. Like he fed me, but that was it. I had told him that I wanted to be celibate, and he distracted me or distracted my dog and then moved on to me. And coercion is rape. The very first time we had sex, I had so much brain fog, and I kept telling him I had brain fog, I had brain fog. But I don't think he understood it, and that it meant I can't make decisions on my own when I have brain fog. And that I was not in, I wasn't able to say yes or no or make that decision. And that the first time we had sex, I remember afterwards, he told me, I thought you said that you weren't going to have sex with me. I might have. I don't remember it, but I was thinking it the entire time. The second time I remember I was frozen like this. I was stuck. I could not fucking move. I was screaming inside my head. I could not move. I was frozen like this. I was not happy. I did not want to be there. That was not someone wanting to have sex. That was someone who was not, I had been targeted. Let me pull, sorry. Let me show this video again, because this is very important, especially if there are any other people who have seen the same doctors that I have and have similar issues. And I do talk partway through this. It's because I want to make sure that I can speak. Sorry, the glare. I'm trying to fight this glare in the window. This lasted for 2 hours. There will be people who were in the emergency room who remember me. I am not an epileptic. If you do remember me, please, please comment. This was the first time that it happened. I should have been laying down like this. I have 3 surgical clips in my neck. It just starts here. Had I known my head was going to flail and I was going to feel like that, I would not have stood that close to the bookcase. That is entirely involuntary. My arm was moving so fast, they could not get the blood pressure cuff on me. They will remember that. I hope. Should also know I developed the pectus excavatum in 2018. Or at least it first showed up. It got faster and
I'm fully conscious during this.
that was July 11th, 2018. What time was that? It was around 8:30. We got to the hospital, I think 9. So if anyone remembers that virtual Voorhees, I had tweeted about it at one point, but my mom, I'm not an epileptic, and my mom may herself suffer some very severe or at least undiagnosed medical and psychological issues that may have been impacting her at that point in time. Up until that point, that flailing had never happened before. Previously, it had been muscle spasms, and that's what I was trying to catch on film, because that's what was happening when I was living with my second husband. Was that my body? I was getting these muscle spasms, and my pulse would jump up to 160, 170 beats per minute. But they couldn't. The muscle spasms wouldn't happen in the hospital, and so that they didn't have me hospitalized for that. They had me hospitalized for cardiac, because at the same time I ended up having strep throat so bad that I needed to be on 3 IV antibiotics. I ended up with petechia. I think that's what it's called, like on my hands. A whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, I was in cardiac for a week. My second husband visited me once. He did not know how to act. It was like the most uncomfortable visit. Like I was aggravating him by him having to be there. I'm sorry. I've been fighting all of my life for my health, and now I have to fight even harder because of the fact that so many things. Also, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. And I want to very, 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 very much from the very depth and bottom of my heart, with every fiber of my being, apologize to anyone in the LGBT QI community who I may have offended. I do suffer from aphasia from time to time, often when I deal with my brain fog, but often, or sometimes other times. And I have a tendency of pulling the wrong words. And then what happens is I'll reflect on a situation, recognize I used the wrong words, and I'll go back and I'll try and fix it. And when I was a child, I used to be told not to stop making excuses. And eventually I just stopped talking. Like I would try to correct myself. I was told to let go, like just let God handle it, and then to stop making excuses. So I did not ever really learn how to properly talk. And when I would be myself, my mom would attack me and tell me people wouldn't believe me. Like I dealt with a lot of problems communicating, and I'm very terrified that because I used the wrong word, other people have suffered. I need to, and this is why I need to apologize. I had used, I think 3 times the word pansexual, maybe 4 times. I used the wrong word. I'm very sorry. I'm not pansexual. I'm straight, but I'm demisexual. I used the wrong term. I'm really sorry. One of the things is, first off, I'm an empath. People project on me quite a bit. My second husband had been trying to project on me. He essentially tried to explain his affair by telling me that he wanted me to have sex with her, despite us not ever having a conversation about my sexuality before. I had made comments about a particular actress with whom I believed I would have a better chance with going on a date with. You don't have to, like, friends go out on dates all the time. But also he's kind of not someone I would ever see her with. Like I myself would not have gotten together with him had I known who he was prior to, the relationship starting. And that's not meant to be an insult. There is someone for everyone. It's just he had been fantasizing about me from the time I was 16 years old. He didn't want me. He did not want me. He wanted to own me. He did not want a wife. And at one point in our marriage, I even broke down in tears because that was one of the things I said to him was like, you don't like, I was raised to be I'm not even kidding. My parents are I grew up in a conservative Christian household. And while I myself am not a conservative Christian, I was raised to be a wife. And he regressed me to such a point that I could barely function. And so I was trying to relearn social skills, and I had people coming at me from all sides, including people who wanted to have sex with me. And I was not ready to, started dating way before I should have. I should not have dated at all. What I needed from friends and support were people to tell me just, let's take you on a vacation. Let's get you to another therapist. Let's make sure you have a divorce attorney. You need a divorce attorney. Getting divorced without an attorney is horrible, especially someone in abuse. Because I don't have any way to protect myself now. And not only has my first husband's family likely been trash talking me for years, not understanding the situation, and that no, I would not have married their son. I was not using their son. He used me. I did not have, everything was a loan. He has to pay that back. I know I need to find an attorney to rework out divorce agreements. He owes my mom money. He owes my bank's money. I filed for bankruptcy because of him. I'm sorry. There are other people's lives that are involved here. And, I don't know how to balance the making sure that the importance of other people's lives and the importance of my own life are both taken care of at the same time. Because there are so many different things going on, and I should not, I don't, I will hold myself accountable for, when I've done things wrong. That's not ever a question for me, but there's this guilt between wanting to live and wanting to help others live, and I don't know how to explain that. Also, please remember, it was after I was told, it was after I had my medical issue that he phrased it that he thought it was time that we were to meet. We met, and after we met, the guy that I had been seeing messaged me, and I ended up breaking up with him not because I wanted to, but almost because I felt forced, but also because he kind of sort of couldn't handle my health issues at that point. And the majority, and I'm not breaking up in like we were seeing each other casually, but it did mean so much more to me. That I didn't want to be neglected. Like legitimately, my ex-husband would have left me to die on the couch. I came home from Canada and had cancer, and he couldn't handle it. He refused to go to the guy I was dating at the time refused to go to a single appointment, refused to be there for me, like barely spoke with me during my treatments. Like because he couldn't handle the cancer, and I was the one dealing with it. I I had just had a major medical issue that had severe cognitive impact, and he wasn't there for me. And no, had he been there for me, it would have been very different. Had I taken an ambulance to the hospital, it would have been very different. I would not have said yes to Shaquem. I would not be here. Um, the brain fog was that bad. And I remember for like weeks, I felt like I was under a spell. I remember thinking that when I met him, that felt like I was under a spell from the moment we met, and it was very strange. Um, and I'm not, grateful for. I didn't have social skills, and I'm very sorry. Um, um, this is important because had that not happened, had I taken an ambulance, I would have been on a stretcher. My head wouldn't have been flailing. Like instead, my mom took me to the hospital, and I sat upright for 2 hours, in a wheelchair. I'm not an epileptic. I don't use a wheelchair normally. Um, Now, had I not had that medical issue, I would also not have accepted the job that I took in September 2018. I had been working as a Lyft driver and looking for other employment. I also wouldn't have taken the job after that. And I I think the best way to handle this right at this moment is to simply say that I signed an NDA with them when I started working. And when I recognized not only what they were doing, um, from the perspective of someone previously unaware of what they were doing, but also, as someone who may have been targeted or discriminated against, but while on the job for them, and had a massive PTSD episode. Um, and it was not, I can't talk about because of the NDA, but I did, I want to really much. And I did actually already, kind of break it, um, a while back. Um, it's important to understand why, and it has to do with one of the people it has to do with a few things. So I'm not going to talk. Essentially, um, when we had training, a bunch of us people followed each other on Instagram. It had not occurred to me at that point in time that some of the people at the training could potentially already be employees, pretending to not be employees. I don't know. I don't know whether that's something that happened or not, but it's just something that hit me now. Anyway, there is actually a potential reality where, so I quit for several reasons. And first off, if there's one individual who asked me what my paycheck was after the first paycheck, because she wasn't certain about pay, if my check was a little bit higher than hers, it's because I had already taken a job, and it was paid. That's pretty much it. I feel like that's important to understand. That's the only reason. But sorry, I don't, for whatever reason, I'm now like my mind is blocked, about this topic. I ended up meeting an employee at that event who I think may have thought something else was going on. First off, when I showed up, he acted like he recognized me, which was very strange because I've never met the man before. Um, Unless he saw me from when I was on television in Canada. I don't know. People do mistake me. I have been mistaken for a sex worker before. I have been mistaken for someone in the adult film industry before. So if that was the case, that's a possibility. But he acted like he knew me. Like he was just surprised to see me there. Um, and then, excuse me. Later on, like a bunch of people kept in touch with via text message. Um, I had this person was supposed he had said he was in the music industry. I had been given concert tickets um, by someone who I used to go to concerts with from time to time, at least for a handful of bands. Um, and he moved to Seattle, so I had his tickets and an extra ticket. Um, I invited you as a professional, not as a date. There was alcohol involved. I very, very seldom drink, and less than 36 hours prior, I had actually gone out to celebrate my new job, where I had, or no, yeah, I'm trying to remember. hmm Um, I had gone out. No, that was the second time I saw him. The first time I saw him, I had not gone out with my friend yet, former friend. Um, but no, we went to yeah. I had just started working at a new job, like just started working a new job, and I went out to this concert with this guy, and he booked. So I had told him I was going to bed. I had not fallen asleep. He had booked a hotel room while I was supposed. I was trying to respond to him to tell him not to book the hotel room, and he booked the hotel room. Um, I to the best of his knowledge, I was sleeping, and he booked it when I was asleep. I had already had an Airbnb room booked. I didn't want to share it with him. I figured we could like share twin beds, or I would sleep on. He said it was king bed only, and he booked it. And I figured I would sleep on the floor because I normally sleep on the floor. Sorry, my cat. Um, um, I I went out. We went to a wine bar. Um, we had gotten a flight of wine. Now, I will admit, this was my first time getting a flight of wine. I have not been to wine tastings. I've been to beer tastings. I have not been to wine tasting. Now, it is important to know that at a certain point in his 30s, or might have been 40s, my dad developed an allergy to sulfa. Oh, a window just popped up on my screen. That is very important. Um, my dad stopped being able to drink alcohol because he developed an allergy. So wine in particular, he could not drink. Um, I have a lot of weird health issues, especially issues that come and go in flares. Um, Now, and issues that involve my kidneys as well. Now, I had a flight of wine and then I ordered a mixed drink that, to the best of my recollection, primarily consisted of Hennessy and Gold Leaf. And to the best of my recollection, the bartender had put extra Gold Leaf on top for me, which was very nice of them to do. And I don't know what the bartender that evening likes as pronouns, so I hope my using they is okay. Um, I had mentioned a few times Shine the Gold Blunts while I was drunk. That's because I'm a medical cannabis patient. I had I had mentioned it to him a few times, and I'm saying that because in 2019, he looked at my property potentially to be a roommate. I had been pretending like I wasn't raped. I was raped that night. I'm gonna get to that in a moment. I had been pretending like I wasn't raped, like everything was okay. And when I moved into this house, I was in such a PTSD point that it was like he toured the house as a potential roommate, and then said he'd think about it, and I wasn't thinking properly. And then he came back the second time and brought a bottle of wine, and he thought we were gonna hook up, and it was just like, why would you think that? And I was able to. I actually spent nearly my entire time like withdrawn, curled up in a ball, and petting my dog because she's my pets, my cat. They're my kids. My cat's right here, right now. I have the most amazing emotional support animals. These are my children. They Hi, Stormy. No, I now have cat hair on my hand. In case you needed proof. These are my these no, these are my babies. Um, I had been dealing with food issues at that point. like I had just been getting back into being able to like eat. There were a lot of things that were going on. That particular night, there was a conversation that was held. Um, I don't know if the bartender remembers it. I remember being drunk, and I do apologize. I don't typically drink very often. But that was right around the time there was something that had happened with missionaries, um, where I think they had been ended up getting killed, um, and I don't remember exactly, but I am. My mom is a missionary. I am not. Um, I I do not want to trash talk the individuals who actually do good. However, this is a topic that I think does need to be discussed at a point when I'm not on cannabis. So I'm not going to get into too much detail, um, but I'm bringing this up because of what was going on in my life at that point in time, um, which was I had just had this major medical issue, and then I had this weird thing while I was driving for Lyft. I had even made a post one night. I had just shaved my head, and I went into Wawa, and like I felt like I had this out of body experience, and I may have offended another Wawa patron. And if I did, I do owe that person an apology. Um, and that's what the post was about, was that I may owe someone an apology. Um, but I'm bringing that up because I remember it was like I felt like I was being slammed against the back wall of the Wawa, and then it like I was watching what happened to me outside of me, and then when I came back in my body, I lived it again. It was a very strange experience, and that happened um, maybe 2 weeks prior to my getting. I'm sure maybe right around the same time. I can look it up. I'm not going to right now. I'm not going to scroll through so many pictures. Um, but I it was right around the same time. Sorry, I got distracted. Um, I'm on my medical cannabis. Um, I needed to eat, as well as sleep and other things, and often process emotion and thought properly, which is very important. Sorry, we went after I had a flight of wine and then a mixed drink with gold in it. And then we went out. And then later that night, I had worn a shirt that said zero fucks given, not because I didn't care, but because it was my way of saying I wasn't going to have sex with him without actually having to say it. Because I know myself, I know my medical issues, and I knew that if I was going to be drinking, I wanted to at least be able to protect myself. I would have gotten a cot or asked for more blankets, but I was not feeling the greatest. And so I ended up getting into the bed. And we did start kissing. But then he picked me up. He said, give me some of that good sex. And he picked me up and put me on his dick. Um, Now he was wearing a condom. So he did take time to do that. I was drunk. Like, I am not someone who normally drinks. Um, I had been avoiding him, and then I agreed to hang out with him. It happened a second time, 36 hours after I went out with someone who got me blackout drunk, whether alcohol or if I was drugged by someone. Um, I don't know. And I'm not blaming, I'm just saying I don't know what happened. I just remember blacking out. Um, and again, if I happened, I don't remember what bar it was. If I was inappropriate, I'm so sorry. Um, like, no, I'm not someone who drinks. And this is why it's important to understand, like, I had met someone at a beer fest in Pittsburgh. I very seldom drink, and I like stopped drinking in my youth because I don't like not being sober. Like, I prefer to be in my head and being able to observe all my surroundings. Because sometimes we notice things that we might not notice if we aren't paying attention. Um, and I do apologize. My battered women, like, it was so bad what I was struggling with. And I was still trying to come to. And then when I ended up taking that job and something happened, and when I came home, I had explained what had happened to my mom and her husband. And my mom's husband's like, he's a misogynist. And it's essentially like my life. And then I come home and I explain about what happened, and it doesn't matter because my life isn't valid. Like, there was one point he didn't believe. I don't remember exactly what was going on, but he didn't remember or didn't remember. I'm sorry. He didn't believe in sexual assault. Like, he didn't believe someone was raped or sexually assaulted. I don't remember what it was exactly, and I don't want to misquote or give any incorrect information. Um, I ended up posting on Instagram about what was going on in my life with my mom and her husband and their church. And there may have been some other former employees or former coworkers or people who were watching my account. I don't know, but it should be known that, like, I don't. there was a lot of really weird stuff that was going on. And I sincerely apologize that I have not been able to properly communicate myself. Um, there are a lot of things that, had I been allowed to be me, I would not have done. It's an update alert that just came up on my computer when I said that. That is not an excuse. Of course, I will hold myself accountable. The company I worked for may be having its employees violate the law, whether they are aware of it or not. And I will be honest at all times. I have to be. This is not. I'm not trying to like upset or offend anyone. And I'm saying this because someone I knew in 2019 at one point told me friends of hers wouldn't be remembering things. And it was a very strange comment, because it was like, you don't even know what I do for a living. Um, it was just a very strange comment. Um, but no, like the person I mentioned earlier in this video, she did not, there were a lot of people who did not know what I did for a job. And one person just, there may have been something that happened because I told someone I couldn't go to her wedding and ended up going to a comedy show instead. She did not know what was going on in my life, and I did tell her fiance the reasons why I wasn't going to. I was, I pretty much had felt like I was putting such a pressure, such a burden on them, and I didn't want to be the reason why their marriage suffered any difficulties. And I explained what had happened with my second husband and my marriage and the people that were living with us. And I didn't tell him about the two cats that I adopted, fostered without really talking to him about it, because he doesn't believe in communicating. She also might have not understood that he had kind of tried to he had brainwashed me into believing that I had no legal rights and that I did not have an attorney, and that after having given up an entire career, he was paying my bills. He also he was feeding me. He had two properties. um I got sick after we got married. Like, I had health issues before, and his primary reason for us to get married, he wanted me on his health insurance, is what he told me. At least at one point in time, I had cared for him very deeply. I had planned for it to be like my last relationship. I had been raised to have a marriage, essentially. I was raised to be a wife. My parents were very religious. That's what happens in deeply religious families, for deeply religious people, for certain, at least in the conservative Christian realm. And sometimes it's hard to escape that, which for me, like, I had to detach and dissociate from who I was in order for my mom to see me as behaving. She wanted me to just kind of not be me. Um, that's going to sound really strange out of context. I'm sorry, this video is all over the place right now. And I do apologize about that. It's just also important to understand that the individual who picked me up and put me on his dick ended up also following the office manager with whom I worked with at the job that I had just started. He followed her on Instagram, and I pointed it out to her. And had I known my legal rights, which, yes, I do in fact have legal rights, I would not be here. And I'm saying that because it's not that I wouldn't stand up for the people at my mom's church, or at least, people in general, because of the fact that my mom has been involved with NAMI and may need to retract that. or rescind that, whatever word works best. But sorry, I'm losing track of my thoughts right now because I'm on my medication. And that's another reason why I think it's important to see me on it, because my husband hated me for being on my medication. And he may have convinced people that this was mental health and not me high. I want to point that out right now. Same thing with my mom. No, this is what I'm like when I'm on my medication. Um, yeah. Anyway, um, I'm sorry. Um, when I was essentially raised to be two different people. And I have to explain this because my parents they thought I was a different person. And it's because of the fact that I was not a conservative Christian. Had I been a conservative Christian and had I done my homework, we wouldn't be here. Had I just done my homework, we wouldn't be here. It was that I had learning disabilities. And it was like my parents forgot that I was spent 3 years on phenobarbital and was in a pediatric neurology clinic and then got daily migraines. And had a stroke in 2016 while I was married to my second husband, and a stroke in 2019, and that medical event in 2018. The person that I was seeing on and off, I want to be very honest here. I don't know them. I also know them only by how they've treated me. And when they've in person has been very different than phone. And I trust the in person, which it is very I don't know how to explain it, but when it's almost like able to sense my thought in a way that automatically, like, he knows and his body reacts. Like, I don't know how to explain it. That is not meant to be sexual in nature. That is it. No, laugh at that. There was a certain point in time, things may have been different. I don't know about now, but I had been having a very hard time communicating. Um, I'm sorry. Someone wants to give me a hug, and I'd like that hug very much. It is very difficult for certain people to understand what it's like. Like, we live in a world where there are people come from so many different places. I was one of the first to get married. A lot of people who I know hadn't been through divorces, or hadn't been married. Um, Like, yeah, no, Jen had absolutely no idea I was asking her about whether or not she still kept in contact with Nellie's people because of a celebrity psychic Instagram battle. That was not that was not something she was aware of. I have an idea who that message for is exactly, um, but I um, there were some very strange things going on. Um, to the point where, like, at one point, I the tenant, she was my roommate, but she was my tenant because she was subletting for me. Um, she stole my key and put it on her keychain. Well, she asked to borrow my key. She said that it would, like, weird stuff. Like, she said that she had left hers. I had given her 2 copies. I paid for the copies myself, because my landlord only gave me 1 key. And then he told me to sublet. So I sublet because I was instructed to. Um, but he had me. I gave her 2 keys. It was Valentine's Day. She said she didn't have her key, and if she could use mine, I said okay. I thought she was stopping by and she'd just come back later. So I gave her the key. I locked the door. Like 2 minutes go by. She walks in the front door with her boyfriend or the guy that she, had seen the house with, and goes upstairs. Like they both walk in and go upstairs. And like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I had to ask for my key back. I had to like knock on the door, and he was there right behind her. And it was just like she had to take it off her key ring. Like she put my key on her key ring. She was borrowing it because she forgot her keys, but she put it on her key ring. There was like, if I had not done that to go to work, like, I did not feel safe leaving my kids here at the house. Like, my dog pulled a used condom out of the trash can. She could have choked on it. Like, she was constantly getting food wrappers and stuff out of the trash. Eventually, the door ended up staying closed, but when it was open, like, constantly, like, no consideration to my kids. But, like, why did you put, and she was talking to, I was her landlord. I may have addressed him as the landlord. My PTSD was really bad. Prior to moving into this property, I had been living in a variety of places that, were not stable. And it was very stressful. There was quite a bit of fear. Um, like it took me a while to get my head right. And Kareem had fucked with me so much because at first he told me he had another tenant, and then he's like, no, I want you to have it. He raised the rent after he had told me $1,000 would be fine. He told me it verbally. And then at a certain point, I told him how much I was spending on my medication, which is cannabis, and he raised the rent to $1,300. Um, sorry, he's suing me right now. We're going to court soon. There is currently no way to submit exhibits, so I don't really know how. Like, we can send them via email, but there's really no way to review them. Especially if they're audio or visual. And there's a video, I flat out have him lying and proving that he's lying because you can see the text messages he claims he did not receive, which that night I ended up calling. He came to the house and I called the cops on him, and the police showed up, and he just off the bat starts screaming at the police officer that I'm a liar, and then starts the same thing that he said in a video I have. about how he's never getting these text messages, and I'm standing there scrolling through, showing the police officer, no, I sent him like 10 messages a day for every day. And when I tried to go to you guys to report this as a trafficking situation, I was told that these messages I was sending out of fear to prevent him from coming by the house, because he was just sending people by the house or showing up like whenever. The police officer told me that this was harassment. It was, and then he starts claiming that I was harassing him, but then claims that he never got those messages. So, like, no, it was not harassment. I was in that much fucking fear. I could not leave the house. Like, what the? If I had not gotten my key and went to work at 2 o'clock in the morning, what would have happened? I wouldn't have been able to make my payment, my daily payment on my car, because I was renting to ride for Lyft. I could barely afford to put gas. I could barely afford to pay them. I couldn't afford for incense for the cannabis. So I do apologize that I ran out of incense money. Like, she had a habit of not coming back for long periods of time. Was she just going to take my key and leave and trap me here? Like, I had to work. I have to feed my kids. I'm sorry. I am. This is very emotional. I'm working through everything right now. I'm very sorry. Um, um, yeah. Um, I need to take a nap now because I need to go back to work. Um, it's been an hour. I need to go back to work. Um, I am concerned. Obviously, I am. I don't want to die, but we all die. I'm a highly intuitive individual, and um, the reality is that time itself may not actually occur linearly. And we have been trying to very slowly talk to ourselves as a species, about certain things for a while. And I think that may be one of them. But I don't want to get on that tangent right now because that's not something I'm in a place to talk about. I am very grateful to be alive right now. I'm very grateful. We have been able to stay in this house. I mean, granted, I owe money. I haven't been able to make enough money to pay rent. Like, I make about 1,000 to 1,200 a week as long as I'm physically able to work. Most of it goes to business expenses. I can barely pay rent. The waiting list for Section 8 is so long and it's closed. I have reached out to certain groups. I need to be able to pay rent. So I'm at a point where even with this job, like, I had been trying to get an attorney to renegotiate my divorce agreement because I recognized that I wanted at least partial custody of my other two kids, my other dogs. But also that um, I should have, there were other things, like, he should have been helping me with my bills. Um, But a lot of people don't know this. For the majority of it was just a year that he was assisting me. The majority of my bills were paid for um, either myself or with Aflac. It was simply when I went off disability. It was a period of about a year that he paid all of my bills, and then another like 9 months that he paid part of my bills because I was able to get a job that paid half of my bills. Um, so while I was able to pay my bills until I became disabled, he was paying my bills once I became disabled. In along with Aflac at one point. He wasn't paying 100% of my bills the entire time, basically. Um, but no, like I had thought I was going to be receiving a portion of an estate, and that's another reason why I did not pursue. Like I did not pursue alimony out of fear, out of not knowing my legal rights, but also because I had assumed I would be receiving a portion of an estate. Had I had legal representation, I would have withdrawn from the estate initially, and that would never have been a factor. But the reality is, my second husband may have married me because he thought he was going to be getting that money. So it's something that I do need to talk about, especially because at one point I did promise him I would pay him back. And I do remember him mentioning a figure during a phone call to his mother. I don't know what it was about, but it was approximately what I owed him. So I'm making the assumption that it was a conversation about what I owed him. Now, I did not receive any of what was assumed I would be receiving because of the fact that I did not have legal representation. I did not know what was going on for the last several years, but there are also other things going on. I trusted my family to make the best decisions for them. But I also, again, had I had legal representation, I would not have been involved with it at all. So it just that needs to be known. I had been waiting for that to return to college. I had at one point been pursuing my PhD. Well, that had been a goal. I had been pursuing my bachelor's with a goal of eventual PhD. Um, but no, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I'm trying to get back into hair. I did. My license expired while I was during the period of time where I couldn't leave the house. Um, I could leave the house, but I couldn't leave it for prolonged periods of time out of fear and because somehow Kareem seemed to know when I was out of the house. And it was almost like he would wait until I was out of the house to do things. And it was terrifying because I do have two kids here. And I have stuff here. I had paintings and stuff here. I've destroyed all of my paintings. I will never paint again. At least that's the plan. Um, I don't want. I was terrified. His brother was trying to launch his art career off of my connections, and that's never like no, dude. Like you and I were not. I did not want to meet you to begin with. And while I appreciate your friendship or what I thought had become friendship, because again, I did not ever learn social skills. The majority of relationships I've had as a child, which I had been regressed to both by my ex-husband and my mom, had been meeting people online and then essentially what our relationship became. Most of them did not involve sex, but they involved sexual activity of some nature. Some of them did, not all of them, or implied. Um, so I do sincerely apologize. Like, had I we just wouldn't have spoken. And this is not meant to be offensive to you towards any way. I don't, not appreciate everything that has happened, in having a place to live, but it's not, I'm sorry. he thought I was going to do porn. I had such a bad PTSD, and I don't remember whether or not I had the PTSD episode first and mentioned doing cam work, or if he mentioned doing cam work first, because he had also talked about it. It might have been on a separate occasion that he had talked about doing porn, but he had been trying to get me to be a stripper and then tried to get me to do porn. And I think it's great, if people want to do porn, but I did not. I had been having a flashback to Toronto 2009, when I remember seeing flyers for $12 an hour webcam jobs. That was all that comment was. And I want to say that in case, for whatever reason it needs to be heard at this moment. Um, I do apologize. It's just I've never been allowed to be myself, and I would like to be myself, please. I moved into this house, and it was almost like, I'm not even kidding. Anytime I would think, suddenly people outside my house were screaming, like something was projecting on me a person I have never been, that I would never be. Um, I have to apologize and explain for many certain messages, but I don't want the hate. It is not fair for someone to ruin things for many other people. We can't live in that world anymore. Um, there are things, again, I can't talk about with an attorney, and honestly, I probably shouldn't be recording these, but my fear is that because, at the time that I did the tweeting and the Instagram, I was so overwhelmed with everything that was going on. I could not think straight. I had also just had a stroke, and it was something that it was only happening when I was on my legally prescribed medication, my medical cannabis. Only happened when I was on cannabis. And it was a weird point because it was like when I would go to sleep, I would wake up, and it was almost like it hadn't happened at all. But I knew that it had. But it was very different than how I had previously reacted on cannabis. And it could have to do with the fact that there is mold in this house that I hadn't previously been exposed to. I don't know. I don't know. The house is also haunted, but there are many things. But I don't. I am terrified that people don't believe me now because someone got mad that I said no instead of going to their wedding, because I didn't want to have sex with someone, because I had chosen to remain celibate and then had put out to the universe that I wanted the person that I had been seeing back, and then was triggered by my landlord's brother. It was like he had a dream, or he didn't want to have vanilla sex with someone else, and it triggered me into, well, I guess I don't have a choice, because that is where I had come from. That is the level, that is what I've been through. And someone, sorry, I have to take off my glasses because sorry. There were things going on in 2019, including someone offering me a love spell, along with celebrity astrologers and psychics trying to play matchmaker online. Um, Also, just in general, not necessarily understanding what else was going on in the world at the time, or quite possibly not believing or wanting to believe that it is as important as it is. Um, it is. Um, there is a possibility that I can't talk about it right now, but um, I highly recommend um, people stop watching a lot of television. Um, we I don't watch television. My coworker, the office manager at my former employer, she did. She would watch The Office while we worked. I listened to lectures and podcasts. Sometimes I would listen to tarot readings, and I would listen to binaural beats and brain synchronizing audio. Um, I don't drink alcohol. My former coworker was exhibiting signs of alcoholism withdrawal um, while she was at work. Um, and I am terrified that my former employers may have had way more influence over my life than they legally should have, especially since there are supposed to be laws in place to protect whistleblowers. And as it was not safe for me to, talk with them about, the fact that I was a whistleblower, essentially, they're if they were spying on, like, no, guys, I don't know. I don't know. Um, the office manager doesn't know me. Um, she would split her attention in so many different things. Um, that well, I'm saying that because I would simply say things in passing, and it's something that used to make my second husband very mad, was that he doesn't believe in bouncing ideas. He takes something as 100% fact when you say it. So if I say something in passing, then that's what it means. And it's almost like she took that as truth as well. I had mentioned that I was on seeking arrangements. I was on seeking arrangements for less than 24 hours. I was on seeking arrangements while I was homeless for the sole purpose of trying to not end up in this house. Um, and it terrified me because I don't date to begin with because I don't like being treated like a piece of meat. And it was not a decision I normally would have made. It was based off of something someone else had suggested to me while I was married. She had actually suggested that I use a sugar daddy to get out of my marriage. I did not. Um, but I did. It was I got off the website nearly immediately. I recognized that the people I was talking with were scams, and that's not what I wanted, and that I couldn't pretend to be someone's fantasy. That I have to be myself. Um, so I did not tell um, my the office manager that I stopped being on the site. She just knows I just kind of oddly exclaimed someone had offered to send me $500. That was a scam. It was a scam. I'm like, like, like what? Like, I was paying attention to work. This woman does not know me. Um, like 2 weeks, like a week later, um, because I had been off the website at that point. Um, I had asked, like we were taught, was a problematic employee that I would have fired nearly immediately. That is how problematic this person is. This is not an issue that you just correct with mediation. This is someone needs. I'm sorry. This is not an issue that you just correct with mediation. This is a very serious issue. Um, she needs a different industry. If these are other people's lives and livelihoods that are at risk, along with hers and her name. But essentially, the former employers who, and I had kind of asked at one point like why they didn't help, and the office manager just said she's crazy, maybe she's a day drinker, she's crazy, and just dismiss it like that. I'm like, well, why do we keep hiring her? She's crazy. Like, okay, so this particular reporter had lied to me about New York and New Jersey Superior Court rules. They also would, from time to time, hand in court transcripts after depositions after they were due to the judge. Now, while part of my job was to, make sure they would hand their jobs in on time, we did not train our employees to use the system properly, the computer system, the computer program that has reminders and stuff like that built into it, or at least is supposed to. I had tried to talk about training. I was kind of laughed at. They wouldn't learn it. Like everything was dismissed. And the thing is, like, I would send text messages and stay on top of people, but my real responsibility is not making sure that you do your job when you're I do my job to the best of my abilities, and that I would have fired her. You don't keep hiring someone who's going to do the same problems over and over and over and over again. No, you fire them. Yeah, my former employers, well, maybe she's a sugar baby. That's not why she's not handing in her work. She's got a sugar daddy. And it's just like, that is not, these are people's lives, other people's lives. Don't just dismiss it because you need to make the money. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know, but I don't. And I'm sorry. I know I'm on my medication right now. And that, I would be a very different having a conversation not on my medication. So I do apologize about that. And that this is all over the place. Again, something would not. I can't work while I'm on cannabis. I have to sleep or eat. Or at a certain point, I was painting. But I do recognize that I was not the perfect employee, and I was still learning things, but a lot of like something happened at a certain point. And again, I still need an attorney, and I'm being guided to at least no, sorry, well, no, the office manager, she was like really excited about this guy who raped me, and which I played off. I kind of like pretended like it didn't happen. But I was so detached and so dissociated that I didn't know how to properly care for rug burns on my knees. I couldn't put Neosporin on them. That's how detached and dissociated I was. That I ended up in urgent care for Neosporin. Um, um, this is an abuse thing. It's not a psychiatric thing. There is a difference. And continuing to perpetuate abuse. Sorry, this is where I don't know why this is the direction that what I have to say is going right now. But it is. I had released a video about alternative schools in 2019, and I have a feeling that someone may have watched it, quite possibly while drunk, or watched with prejudice, not understanding that the school I attended is meant to be a safe space. The school I attended was open, to the best of my knowledge, was open to everyone from the state. Now, I cannot speak on behalf of experiences of others, and I don't want to. But I want to reiterate that it was supposed to be a safe space, and at one point, there were supposed to be laws in place to protect individuals. There is a very serious, very real reality that my Instagram account had been mined by certain individuals involved in our government um, prior to the passing of certain laws, including some which impact our education system, passing or repealing of certain laws. Um, that sort of thing needs to stop happening. Um, we well, again, I need an attorney, but I I may have met God, or I don't know how to explain it. Um, but that's the best I can explain it right now. Um, if we can't show that we ourselves, take responsibility for our actions and grow, not just individually, but as countries, um, well, part of what I essentially I had been training with HemiSync and the H Plus program. I did not use Gateway. However, there is a possibility that those not in the Gateway experience can still somehow access it. It also needs to be remembered that HemiSync was at one point used by the government for their training purposes and is now in meditations that feature things like meeting God and all the angels. I don't want to get into details about things, but the reality is like if you were to look at us as a species and see what was going on in the world, like, we are about to enter periods of climate change and a point of our history that is unprecedented. We are about to experiencing things that if we don't address, um, billions will suffer. It's not business as usual anymore. That's not. Sorry. Again, sorry. I am going to stop filming this, and then I'm going to take a nap, and then sorry. I have faith that um, hi Ruby. I'm doing everything I can to keep positive. That at least you know it'll be okay for the other people impacted. I pray that it'll be okay for me and for my kids. Um, um, yeah. Um, I do apologize about how um, this has gone. Um, again, please recognize I may not be communicating properly, and I am on my medication, so I do sincerely apologize. If I need to explain or clarify anything, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you greatly. Thank you.